don't feel this is right. I don't know, should we let go? Diving into your mind just to overflow. Are you feeling the signs? Feel the cold in your bones. Looking up to the sky to see a silver sun. I can't be the only one who always feels this way. I can't be the only one who's slowly falling. I can't be the only one who always feels this way. I can't be the only one who's slowly falling.
Alright, sorry for the wait. Everybody, welcome back. I know that I missed the stream for last night for Mask of the Plague Doctor, but I was streaming Dishonored for so long and getting like way too deep into it um, that I just got so fucking tired, and eventually once I ended the stream, I basically just passed out. So, to make up for not streaming yesterday, I'm going to be streaming this today twice. So, for right now, I'm going to be streaming chapter 12. And then later on tonight, somewhere around, I don't know, 10ish to midnight, I will stream this for chapter 13 after. That will come later on. So, with that being said, let us just get back into it. This is Mask of the Plague Doctor by Peter Parrish, chapter 12. I think that's 12. I wasn't very good with my Roman numerals. From wakeful dread to dream of sleep. You watch the pale winter sunlight fall upon the handle of Alice's wooden spoon as she swirls it around the bowl of watery gruel. The rays are almost warm this morning, and you choose to lift your crow mask, shifting your position on the infirmary step to allow the strip of struggling sunshine to touch your tense features. You murmur a soft noise of comfort as part of your face begin to thaw and relax. Last meal? You hear the splash of pallid soup and peer out through one eye. The spoon is abandoned, and Alice wears an expression of distaste under her own raised mask. Not your finest witticisms, Ayoko, she replies to the tusked surgeon, approaching across the grass. Given our circumstances. Whether by choice or unconscious impulse, her head turns toward the southwest, where banners muster beyond the town's walls. Ill-judged, sorry, he says, sounding contrite. How long? You ask. Ayoko's boar snout tilts upward in thought. A full cycle. Perhaps two if we're fortunate. I doubt Moreland is eager to plunge headlong into plague-ridden streets, even at the Crown's insistence. But he will be eager to end this siege, you point out, and return to his home. The clatter of wood draws your attention back to Alice. Her fox mask is down, and the bowl of half-consumed gruel sits at her side. Then let us end it for him, she says with fortitude, by creating the cure that will get us out of this town. Easier to say than to produce, Ayako says, but I agree. We make our attempt now, or not at all. Your colleagues are right. There is no time left for research or investigation. You must use what you can. Only one deity has the power to aid us now. I must invoke the Dweller? No. Our knowledge is slim, but if we combine what we know, we may find fortune. We cannot find a cure, we must flee. I don't know. I tried contacting the dweller, but he didn't seem much help. So I guess I'll go with this one. Our knowledge is slim, but if we combine what we know, we may find fortune. Next. Slim knowledge? Speak for yourself, Alice remarks. What I meant to say is, she knows what you mean, Ioko chuckles. Though this may not have been the best time for levity. Sorry, Jack the Ripper, Alice continues. I admire your tenacity, but what combination of research do you envisage? Everything each of us has learned about this plague, we have surely shared. She is right, Jack the Ripper, the surgeon adds. You're asking for us to draw inspiration from an empty well. Perhaps I am, you say. But I'm not ready to give up. I'm proposing that we use every last hour to study, test, and theorize. Until Baron Moreland himself is at the gates of the sanctuary, I am not willing to cease. Ioko looks to Alice and expels a puff of air from his masked cheeks. Can't believe I'm being subjected to motivational oration. Hold on. I can do that better. I'm sorry. Hold on. Can't believe I'm being subjected to motivational oration, he says. Agree to assist and I'll stop, you reply. In the absence of any better ideas, Alice says, tapping the flat of her hand against the cold stone of the well. Fine, the surgeon says. I'm in too. Let's throw ourselves at the mercy of luck, since that has worked out so very well for us thus far. As your two colleagues set out towards the staircase to the cellar, you managed a bittersweet smile beneath her mask. Your efforts may well be for naught, but these final moments will be at least spent together, in pursuit of a noble cause. Ioko pauses in his stride, turning his tusks back your way. You coming? Nod and follow them. Your remaining supplies and herbal treatments are arrayed before you upon a central bench in the cellar laboratory. The three of you stare at the pouches and crushed roots, as if inspiration may come through the simple observation of your raw materials. Time staggers on, able to stand no more. Alice begins to pace back and forth. We must return to basic principles, she says. Are we able to induce sleep, and will such a method work here? In such circumstances that require a patient's slumber, we would brew dwale, Ioko says. But you know we have already tried this, only Jack the Ripper was absent. You nod, recalling their findings. Even a dosage far beyond the norm was not sufficient to produce sleep. There is an alternative dwale formula we could attempt, Alice replies with some hesitation. Though it is no longer in use. Were there any references at all? The literature condemns it as a crude and dangerous concoction. We are at the point where no avenue can go unexplored, you say. Of what does this potion consist? The ingredients differ between books, she says, walking over to her own bench and leafing through a pile of parchment. I recorded an amalgamation of the various recipes somewhere. Aha! Holding a fragment of scroll aloft for a moment, Alice consults her own research. Seems we would require henbane, of which we have none, Ioko interrupts. Or, Alice emphasizes, root of wolfsbane, of which I possess a moderate amount. Then I believe our course is clear, you say. We must attempt to replicate this form of dwale. Were the situation not dire, I would voice an objection, Ioko says. But in our position, at worst we consign our patients to the dweller's eternal sleep. Better than further torment from the walking death, you nod, or by blade and flame in Baron Moreland's assault. Hello, Ducky. Assisted by your colleagues, you assemble the ingredients for this last desperate attempt at a cure. Root of wolfsbane is combined with rhododendron and jasmine. You know, every time I read this word, and when I'm in like Fallout 76, I would always go rhododendron because I would just not be able to pronounce it properly. You work until your supplies of each are exhausted, sparing nothing and brewing as many vials as you are able to fill. Head to the infirmary. How's the connection for you, Doc? Are you able to see and hear me clearly? Is this sufficient enough for you and your terrible devices of which you are connected to my stream with? The sky is a darkening swirl of oranges and purples as you cross the sanctuary courtyard towards the door of the infirmary. You place your crate of containers at your feet, pausing by the side of the well to look up and admire the palette left by the dying light. It's not our last sunset. Alice's voice is resolute. I'd say it's our first of sorts, you say, turning to her and hauling the open crate back up to your arms. The first for a town that now has a cure for the walking death. There is a dull clink from the vials inside. Come on, Ayoko says. There's others waiting. It's better now because I can read words in the pop-up if I put my eye up real close. Absolutely horrendous. You should really get a better connection so that you can watch me in 1080p. At the infirmary entrance, summoned by word of your intentions, stand Aylwin Blake and Pariris Marilda. You see their eyes move to the contents of your crate. Have your endeavors succeeded? Marilda asks. Will this cure our citizens? That is our sincere hope, Alice says. We must warn you, there is no guarantee. Until the treatment is administered, we cannot know for certain. The Baron is preparing to bring destruction to this town, and those confined to the infirmary are in agony, Elwyn says. Many would consider death to be a mercy. Oof. Thanks, just let me call up my ISP and upgrade my plan. I don't need food anyway. I'll be fine. They will have it if we do not act with haste, Ielko says, casting a glance in the direction of Thornback Hollow's southern gates. With a nod of understanding, Aylwin raises and releases the door's heavy knocker. Once, twice, thrice. The latches and locks are undone in succession, and the door swings open. The infirmary chamber is now far beyond capacity. Save for a few narrow avenues enforced by the new caretakers, every portion of floor is covered by tattered and stained bedding, occupied by a patient in the perpetual clutches of wakeful torment. No longer can any of the inflicted roam the room. Instead, these rare restless husks now shudder and rock in place, seated upon what few fragments of clothing they could gather or were donated by sympathetic attendants. An aroma of thick, feverish sweat clings to every surface. Despair fills every space. Ioko mutters an exclamation of horror. To work, Alice states undeterred. Jack the Ripper, Ioko, let us begin. The Fellowship of Royal Physicians has best honor us with a parade after this. Do not lose heart, our actions have the blessing of the deities. Would that the crown could see the conditions in which its people were forced to live, I say nothing, prepared. No. I might as well say something. Would that the crown could see the conditions in which its people are forced to live. You trek back and forth between the open crate, moving farther afield with each journey. Every time you embark, it is with a vial of dwale in hand. Every return has you leaving an empty container, its contents consumed by one of the sick. For those that are no longer capable of swallowing such substances, you leave traces upon their lips for them to lick off. Anybody unable to sit up and drink is supported by an attending member of Aylwin's sect, the prioress, or one of your colleagues. To the best of your ability, you work to ensure that every single person confined to the infirmary gets at least a taste of your improvised treatment. Last one, Ioko says, placing an empty dwell vial back inside the open crate. He folds and then unfolds his arms. You notice the heel of his boot tapping against the floor. How long do you suppose? He asks, perhaps more to fill the silence than in search of an answer. We've controlled the dosage, but it's a dangerous formula, you say, filling the anxious silence with information your colleague already knows. Whatever is going to occur, we'll see it soon. Across the room, you see Alice pacing back and forth, checking individual patients with obsessive regularity. A few steps away from where you stand with Ioko, you see Marilda touching the back of her shaved head in nervous affectation. Aylwin has his eyes shut tight, and you notice a slight movement to his lips. Ioko nudges your arm with some urgency. In the near distance beyond the first two rows of infected townsfolk, Alice is making frantic gestures, ushering you closer. As fast as you are able, you cross to her side. She points to a woman at her feet, whose closed eyes and demeanor of serenity sends image of death racing through your scattered mind, until, in a gesture of clarity, Alice holds up a gloved finger near her own lips. You see now? The woman's chest rise and fall, the fluttering lids of her eyes. She is sound asleep. We did it! Alice whispers, elation in her voice. I can scarce believe our method worked, but... Ioko raises a fist in triumph, unable to contain a burst of hoarse, triumphant laughter. The woman murmurs and stirs. Too late. Alice attempts to quiet the jubilant surgeon. The sounds of his celebration has her blinking awake. What? She says, slurring her speech. Who are you? She looks to Alice and starts to giggle. Fox in the fields. Fox in the She's not had the waking death long, Alice says with concern. Before she closes her eyes, she knew me. Is she intoxicated? Ioko asks, somber once more. The woman blinks again. Where is this place? She says, noticing the other townsfolk laid out upon the floor as if for the first time. Who are they? Holding her own hand out in front of her face, she becomes distracted by the movement of her own fingers. Doctors, Owen appears at your side, nervous excitement in his voice. Sleep. I've seen people sleep. At least 4, but... He pauses, observing the woman before you. She wiggles her hand and laughs. Some of these citizens, I fear, their minds are not what they once were. You pass among the rows of patients, reveling in the chorus of snorts and snores of those reclaimed by the realm of slumber. Such sounds are now beauty to your ears, but Eowyn Blake has spoken true. Though your formulation has chased the walking death from the infirmary, it has left at least a dozen in a state of confused regression, unable to recall much of their life prior to the disease. Take a breath. Cure their walking death with teamwork and a little luck. You stand outside the sturdy infirmary door, looking to the night sky. A light wind teases at the edges of your robes. Your erstwhile victory has a hollow tinge. This is still worthy of celebration, she says, pacing the grass. It's not a perfect cure, but the Baron must realize that. Are you worried about your plight? Those we just had left half senseless, or your own induction to the fellowship? Ioko says. seated with his elbows to his knees upon the doorway step. I regret I regret that we could not devise a flawless solution, comes the swift retort. Moreland will lift the siege, she adds, as if by way of reassurance. We have fulfilled our duty. The people are cured, the majority at least. We shall attend to those in the upper chambers in due course. Though the sooner we can inform him of our success, the better. You look in the direction of Moreland's camp. We should hasten to the southern gates. Ioko tarries in the courtyard. Ioko tilts his head towards Alice. She returns a nod and continues across the courtyard while the surgeon lingers by the well. He gestures for you to tarry with him. I need to ask something of you before we parley with the Baron, he says, looking up as if to check whether anyone else is in earshot. What is it? I shall speak plain. If we share all of what we know of the Walking Death, the Crown will use that information for conquest and ill intent. I've seen that much. I've seen as much. He exhales, sending a cloud of mist into the early morning air. I ask that you only share what is needed to free Thornback Hollow, and no more. I beg you, do not allow them to use this plague as a weapon against others. I won't jeopardize our chance to join the Fellowship of Royal Physicians. I'm sorry, I'll do what I can to help thwart the Crown's plans. You have my word. You misjudged the Crown, and the law dictates that we must share our findings in full. Perhaps certain aspects of our findings should be withheld on the grounds of medical safety. I'll do and say whatever is necessary to get me out of this town. Perhaps certain aspects of our findings should be withheld on the grounds of medical safety. That may be the best way to present it to Alice, Ioko says, nodding his head. She insists that a position with the Fellowship awaits her, and her efforts could jeopardize that ambition. That position will be well deserved. The surgeon sighs. That is so. She would improve any such organization, yet I fear no such reward exists. The Crown does not extend invitations to physicians of our standing. Alice's voice calls to you from across the courtyard, querying your sloth. If we are united in purpose, we can withhold important details and still have Moreland lift the siege, Ioko says. You exchange a shared nod of understanding, before his long stride begins to carry him across the hardened earth. Whatever the two of you were debating, it'll have to wait, Alice says, directing you toward the archway leading out to Thornback Hollow's main thoroughfare. I do not intend for this town to fall because we tarried too long by a frozen well. Come on. Hasten to the southern gates. Dawn is still expelling the lingering morning darkness as you approach the southernmost entrance to the town. In the pale light, you notice the increased numbers of guards stationed in preparation for an attack. They sit in small groups, huddled around makeshift pyres. The red-sashed laborers rub their hands for warmth. One spots your physician attire and nudges the woman next to him. Better have found a cure, Mask, she calls after you, or else be ready to fight. You acknowledge the comment with a raised hand, but do not slow your pace. Ahead stand the gates of Thornback Hollow, fashioned in oak and encased within a grand wooden gatehouse. A set of steps inside a structure of scaffolding leads back and forth in ascending diagonals. Atop the gatehouse resides the mechanism to seal or release the formidable doors. Up there, Ioko says, pointing to the sentries patrolling above. When the Baron gets within earshot, we can address him from the gatehouse. Your hand is on the first banister of the stairway, when a familiar face hails your attention. Are the ranks now so thin that they would force doctors to the front lines of battle? Lucia, you say with a nod. No, we intend to parley with Baron Moreland. What are you doing here? I have a blade, they reply, gesturing back at the fighters gathered around their small fires. I'm told that will make me useful. You intend to fight? The laughter leaves the question open. Noticing that you now lag behind your ascending colleagues, you bid your mercenary companion a brief farewell. Climb the gatehouse steps. The floor of the gatehouse gantry creaks beneath your boots. Sentries move aside at the sight of your signed parchment of authority. As you look below across the sparse winter land outside Thornback Hollow, you see the extent of the threat arrayed before your adjusting eyes. Sorry. Row upon row of yellow and black clad soldiers, pennants fluttering with erratic rhythm in the bluster of the morning wind. At their heart, a wheeled ram is battering. Sorry, let me just fix that. At their heart, a wheeled ram it's pattering. All right, the car's gone. I am no longer distracted. I can do this. At their heart, a wheeled ram. Its battering pillar formed from the trunk of a gigantic felled oak. So that's where their time has been spent, you hear Myoko mutter to himself. Seated atop the lone horse in his command, Baron Morland parts the information and directs the animal in a slow trot along the vanguard of his forces. The air trembles. You hear a distant rumble of thunder to the north, rattling the slopes of the Cragsbury Mountains. You there? Myoko calls to the older of the two sentries, a woman shouldering a dilapidated crossbow. Could you strike that man on the horse? Once, maybe, she replies, if the bastard were closer, and if I had any bolts. You've been given no ammunition? So this crossbow is just for show. Without bolts, how exactly do you intend to fight? Let me see, this one. I'm gonna go with this one. So this crossbow is just for show? Next. Could still be used for shooting, the sentry says, but the ones scavenging for food needed them more. She points in the vague direction of the mayoral manor. Won't leave much of a squirrel or rat behind, but it stops 'em moving. How do you say we stay fed? Sorry. How do you think we stay fed? Shame, though. I'd have fancied sticking a baron. Bridget the Baron Killer, her companion sniffs. The two of them share a rasping chuckle as Ioko shakes his head. He's riding our way, Alice remarks. A cloak embroidered with the moorland falcon billows behind the Baron as he approaches the base of the gatehouse. He pulls on the reins, bringing the horse to a near stop from its canter. Physicians, he calls out, your arrival is most opportune. The town has directed me to reopen the trade route, and as their loyal servant, this is what I intend to do. One way or another. He pauses, peering up at the sentries. Lower the crossbows at once. Yes, my lord. Your baronship, the woman says, all trace of her prior bravado now vanished. Mere days under siege, and already you would target your betters, the baron says, turning the horse for another pass beneath your vantage point. Discipline must be restored. That is, he waves his hand, if Thornback Hollow is yet free of plague. Tell me, physicians, have you rid these streets of the pestilence? You lean closer to Alice, shielding the mouth of your mask with your hand. We should be honest with him, tell him only what he wishes to hear. Tell him only what he wishes to hear. Yeah. Better. He's bound to learn the truth in time, she whispers back, but I'll present this as best as I can. Well, the Baron calls again. How fare your efforts? We have found a cure, Alice says. Call off the attack. This is excellent news. Excellent news indeed, the Moorland replies. I will have to verify your claim, of course, but tell me, have you also identified the source of this infection? The source is known to us, you tell him. Glad tidings indeed, he says. You have done well. Very well indeed. Nothing more, Alice says. Pr- Producing a cure took all our efforts. Of course, the Baron says. I shall not fault you for that. Let's hope that's enough to get us out, Alice mutters. One last matter before I send my envoy to investigate the interior, Moreland calls, pulling on the reins to guide his horse back toward the lines of levied infantry. I have obtained concerning missives from my informants that a guild revolt has overthrown the crown's representative. This is a most displeasing development. With that, the Baron gallops away. We've done our best, he'll soon see that. With our crossbows only loaded, the Baron is an honorable man of the crown. We shall be judged with fairness. The medical work is our most rational advocate. The medical work is our most rational advocate. But I'll go with that one. Quite so, Alice says. It'll back up all that we have said. As you descend the staircase to await the arrival of Baron Moreland's envoy, you see Alice pause on one of the wooden landings. Another faraway boom of thunder makes the banister of the wooden scaffold vibrate beneath your hand. Alice reaches to pat her torso as if checking for something beneath her rope, then walks on. You do not find yourself waiting long. The sound of grinding mechanisms stir you from your position near one of the small pyres set by the gathered guards. As you stand, you see the imposing gates crack open, wide enough for the lone robed figure to slip through. A desperate citizen, drawn to the sight by the noise, rushes forward as if to make an attempt to squeeze through the gap, only to halt as he spots the spears of the escorting soldiers. The figure steps farther inside, then signals above to the gatehouse. With a fresh groan of cogs, the gates close once more. As the hood of the robe is lowered, you recognize the face of the messenger who accompanied you to your previous rendezvous with the Baron. Rhea, wasn't it? You ask. Seeing the rolled parchment in her hands, you add. Promoted to scribe now, I see. Doctors, she replies, sounding a little sheepish. I come at the Baron's insistence. Don't worry, Alice says. We won't hold you responsible for reporting what you see. Thank you, she says with some relief. I've been told to request that someone accompany me to your infirmary, to answer any queries I may have. Ioko's tusked mask turns towards Alice. You anticipate that your most capable theorist will accept this invitation, but she instead demurs. You go, Ioko, she says. I could be needed here if the Baron returns with questions of his own. Thought you'd be keen to present our work, Ioko replies. All the same to me, though. Follow me, Rhea. Good luck, Ioko. I thought you'd want to display our works too, Alice. Something is amiss here. What's going on? Something's weird. Yeah, I'm gonna go with this one. Something is amiss here. What's going on, Alice? Lower your voice, she whispers. Alice waits until Ioko and Rhea are farther out of earshot before calling to Lucia. Your mercenary companion stops leaning against the foot of the gatehouse stairway and weaves their way through the assembled guards. Alice delves inside her robe and pushes a bound journal into Lucia's surprised hands. Take this, she says. If our luck fails and the Baron assaults the town, I want you to get this out through the tunnels in the old quarter. It's a record of everything the three of us had learned about the Walking Death. Lucia turns the tome over in their hands. Why me? They ask. Why not escape this town yourself? The quarantine, the physician replies. I won't let this knowledge be lost, but the fewer people who breach the walls, the lower the risk of spreading further infection. She points to Lucia's blade. Of us all, you stand the best chance of escape. You spent days scouting lanes and alleyways, being Cuvier's eyes. You can stay off the main streets. They nod, placing the writings with stoic care inside their own jacket. Alice beckons them closer, describing the route through the underground caverns in hushed tones. Keep watch as your colleagues talk. Raised voices from farther down the street draws your ear, as you watch the guild members begin to cheer and get to their feet. Walking toward you, her cane striking the earth with each stride, is the lone figure of Elva Thrith. Her progress is slowed by a steady procession of admiring townsfolk, every one of whom the council leader takes the time to stop and greet. You tap Alice on her shoulder, hoping that she has conveyed all she needs to Lucia. The mercenary delivers a quick nod of a farewell, and you see them slip away between two buildings, no doubt positioning themselves to obscure how matters unfold. Looks like word of our deeds has reached the top, Alice remarks. She takes your arm, gripping hard enough that you feel the tips of her gloved fingers indented against your limb. Listen, Jack the Ripper. While we may still talk without restriction. She looks up, gauging the seconds before you will be interrupted. I know Ayoko has been pressuring you to withhold information from the Baron. He was hurt by the crown, and I understand his reticence, but... Her hand presses harder, her voice severe. I need to join the Fellowship, Jack the Ripper. Do you understand? We are to tell the Baron everything. I'm not sure if... But before you can formulate a proper response, Alice has released your arm from hers and is moving to greet Aviva. I see the crown still directs boots to trample our fields, the guild leader says, motioning with her free hand toward the gates. Is there to be a peaceful withdrawal, or must we chase another tyrant from power? The idea is presented as if it were one that could succeed. An envoy of the Barons is exclaiming our medical work as we speak, Alice explains. If proof of our treatments prove satisfactory, the siege will be lifted. And if not, the walls of this free town will be assailed. Well, we placed our trust that it will not come to... What if I told you I believe we could win such a fight? Alviva asks. Our opponents have been camped in exposed conditions, subsisting on fewer morsels than even our own resilient citizens. When I look beyond the walls, I do not see a bloodthirsty horde. I see frightened laborers and subjugated farmers, pulled from their livelihoods and forced to serve at the crown's behest. You describe every conflict, you say. Laborer will fight laborer or suffer at the hands of their masters. Quite so, the guild leader replies. But even before the first council was convened, I instructed the guild to drop missives urging rebellion against the Baron in the few spots where patrols pass close to our walls. I cannot imagine many were found, let alone read, says Alice. Windier days were a challenge, she concedes. Yet, in this past cycle, we received our first reply. A group of soldiers defending the perimeter of the northern gate have been in communication with guild sentries. Several deserted during the early snows. Others are ready to defect to our side. Conditions in the Baron's camp were degrading fast, you admit, recalling your visit. It is possible enough would wish to switch sides. This talk of insurrection is moot, Alice insists. The envoy will confirm that we have done enough for the siege to be lifted. Her tone suggests she has convinced herself of this at least. Nonetheless, Elviva says, should the need arise, the people stand ready. As the conversation drifts toward more benign manners, you continue to ponder what has been said. Await the envoy's return. Storm clouds have begun to gather overhead by the time Ayoko and Ria are spotted by Alice. You get to your feet, finding them heavy with dread and resenting that every moment of your hard toil now rests on the opinion of one who does not even wear the mask of your profession. I've observed conditions at the infirmary, spoken with the unusual attendants in forested garb. Sorry, spoken with the unusual attendants in forested garb, and compared my findings to what Baron Moreland told me you had conveyed as truth, Rhea says, unrolling a piece of parchment. Diligent, at least, you think to yourself. And what is your conclusion? Ellis asks, exhibiting a remarkable calmness of tone. I have gathered additional information, but I believe what you have told the Baron to be accurate, she replies. Tell us, you say. In your opinion, will this be enough for Baron Moreland to end the siege? I cannot predict the Baron's whims, but all that I have seen suggests the plague is cured. Then deliver what you found, Aoko says, motioning to her parchment. And let's get a verdict one way or another. Wait, Alice says. What if our prospects with the Fellowship? What of our prospects with the Fellowship? The Fellowship? Rhea asks. Of royal physicians, she replies. We were to be inducted as a reward for our services. The envoy appears at a loss. I know nothing of this, she says. But to receive such a recommendation from the Baron, you would have to be a favored subject indeed. As Rhea prepares to depart, you are aware that this may be the final chance to integrate yourself further in Baron Moreland's graces. Drops of rain begin to patter around your feet. I'm confident that our medical achievements are enough. I encourage Alice to allow a most significant discovery to be named after Baron Moreland. I can present evidence implicating Sybil Blake in a serious crime. What? Thornback Hollow must be pried free from beneath the Baron's fist. I call Villa's guild to arms. I guess I could present evidence implicating Sybil Blake in a serious crime. You know, he didn't seem happy at all with that happening. But, maybe if I present the evidence for that, maybe he would favor it? I don't know. I'll go with that one, though. I have a deed of property showing transfer to Sybil Blake's possession at no cost, you say. It was taken from a pair of smugglers who are promising to get people out of Thornback Hollow. The implication here is clear. Blake was undermining the medical quarantine for personal gain. She was putting the entire realm at risk, Rhea says, expressing her shock. But Sybil Blake has already been overthrown. If you hope to use this to convince the Baron of her guilt, are you not a little late? Not at all, you say. Prior to our arrival in town, the Baron made it clear that the Crown's preference was for Sybil Blake to remain in power. She has instead been deposed, but this document proves the revolt was justified. It shows the Crown appointee breaking Crown law. I see, the envoy replies. This is to be your shield against claims that you did too little to protect the former mayor. She looks to the sky, rolling her own piece of parchment up and putting it inside her robe in an effort to keep it dry. Weather's turning, she says. If there is no other business, I recommend we depart. You nod in agreement, and Rhea signals to the sentries in the gatehouse above. The gates begin to groan. As the doorway to the town swings wider, you ready yourself to leave. Alice and Aoko move to do likewise, but the envoy shakes her head and points a finger square at your chest. Just you, she says. We all played our part, Alice says, clearly aggravated. Should we not all be able to make our case? I'm sorry, Rhea says, but the Baron left me in no doubt. Somebody has a favorite, Alco remarks. Since you should be our lone representative, Alice tells you. Remember, give Morland as much detail about our investigation as he desires. As she speaks, you see the surgeon give you a subtle shake of his head behind her. Yeah, if we all went, Alco would not be happy with her, would not be happy with the way things happen. I'm worried that if I get there, he might also ask um, the other doctors. So I don't know. Hmm. The gates fall quiet, replaced by the noise of heavier rain upon rooftops and muddied earth. Your cue for departure. Lead on, you say to Rhea, wrapping your robes tight about you. Following the envoy over the threshold, be good. Sorry? Following the envoy over the threshold, you step beyond the walls of Thornback Hollow for the second time. You reflect upon the responsibility you carry with you, to the town, to your colleagues, and the decision that lies ahead. For a moment, the weight of your role feels almost overwhelming, until a misstep upon the dirt trail splatters in a patterned spray of wet mud over the edge of your boot. The damp squelch you tips you into a fit of laughter, drawing your mind away from the rigors of the hour. Your mirth lasts for so long that Rhea gives you a glance of slight concern. Together you travel up a slight rise to where the yellow and black soldiers are assembled on the outskirts of the forest. Up close, you realize that many of these levied peasants are suffering from malnutrition. Some are even missing fingers and earlobes to the bite of frost. They are nonetheless better armed and more numerous than those who remain to defend Thorback Hollow. With the envoy at your side, the rows part without complaint. Pass through. Rhea directs you past the crude battering ram, pointing to a temporary tent beyond the front lines. This shelter is a little more than a square of material stretched out and supported by some simple poles. Beneath this cover, protected from the rain, and seated upon a chair whose lavish finery looks quite out of place, is Baron Morland. You feel a pang of sympathy for the poor bastard who had to haul the gaudy piece of furniture to the battlefield. Perhaps the honor belonged to the sturdy fellow standing guard outside the entrance. No sign of malnutrition there, you know. Wait here, your guard says, stooping beneath the canopy to deliver her report. Sorry. You stand alone in the downpour, looking back across the brown landscape to the walls of the enclosed town. Another peal of thunder rolls its way around the peaks of the Cragsbury Mountains. A few feet away, you see the Baron's lone horse strain. As its mooring and clump. Very sorry. Let me just get a drink of water. I am so distracted right now. Every time I read and make a mistake, I always get really freaking fidgety and nervous. And then it just gets really hard for me to start reading back again. It takes a while for me to calm my nerves down, because I'm doing this live and it's freaking me out a little bit. Because I don't want to ruin the immersion, but I already have at this point making so many mistakes, and I should stop now. A few feet away, you see the Baron's lone horse strain at its mooring and clomp to the ground. Come forth. Rhea gives you a nod as she passes by on her way out. Dreadful afternoon for a purge, Baron Morland says as you enter. waving his hand toward the miniature rivers streaming off the cover of his makeshift tent. Still, this rain can't persist forever, but let's do our best to prevent it coming to that, shall we? Of course, your lordship. You can prevent it with a single command, yet you do not. La-de-do. If the deities permit it, we shall have a resolution. Let's see. We plague doctors have done our part. I'm gonna go with that one. Have you indeed? Morland says. We shall see. Unfurling a rolled parchment, the Baron pretends to study the words he has already. Sorry. Unfurling a rolled parchment, the Baron pretends to study the words he has already read. You cannot help but notice that Rhea has been unable to keep the document free from water damage. Let us waste no more time on pleasantries, or otherwise, he says. My envoy reports that you have indeed cured the walking death. You're about to interject, but the Baron's raised hand directs you to be silent as he continues. You have, it would appear, found and verified the source of the plague. There's something else, you start to say, unable to maintain your silence any longer. I have not finished, Doctor, the Morland says with a scowl. You were encouraged to keep the crowns and Pointy in power. Instead, I learned that a rabble of timber laborers are commanding in Sybil Blake's stead. Indeed, but there's more. The accusation against Sybil Blake, the Baron says, interrupting you once more. I am informed that you have a document proving her guilt. Please hand it over. You produce the property deed from your robes. Warland studies the paper and its signature. I made it clear that the Crown found Blake's rule to be in their interest, he says. No matter how justified, her removal leaves me in an awkward position. Nonetheless, this evidence will prove a useful shield against further imperial reprimand, and I thank you for it. A flash of faraway lightning illuminates the sky outside. The two of you pause, counting the beats until the long roll of thunder has passed. Now, in accordance with Crown law, Morland continues, it falls upon you to divulge every aspect of your medical discoveries, treatments, and progress to me. I trust you are willing and prepared to do this. I choose to tell him everything I ought to alter and withhold just enough information to deny the Crown a full picture. I announce that I cannot in good conscience provide the Crown with these details. Hurt him. Alice says that the Crown has hurt him. But does she know the whole story? Now, why would he want me to not give all the information? It sounds like he has been through this before and done this for the Crown in the past. Now, I'm not sure if the Crown is going to continue with the same ways as they were before. I'm not even sure if this plague was actually started by the Crown. I can't know for sure. This is a very difficult decision to make. Because while I want to withhold some information so that the Crown cannot use it completely to use it as like chemical warfare or some shit, I cannot also know if they already know, or if Alice or Ayoko are going to say something different. I don't know if they're going to axe them behind my back. And then again, I don't also know if they're going to betray me at the same time. Because I'm still worried that something might happen once I tell them everything. Now, I don't know. Hmm. It would be a good idea to not give the crown a full picture, but opt to alter and withhold just enough information. Alter information. Alter. I don't like the way that it says that they ought to alter information. Hmm. Now, withhold just enough information I'm fine with, but alter? I don't know if I'm okay with that. Although that we do have a cure, it's not a perfect cure, and the effects leave the people without their memory of before the plague, which could definitely be used as a weapon in warfare, which kinda sucks. Hmm. But then again, alter wouldn't mean that it would be one of the cures that we have made, a different version. Maybe I would be telling them about the cure that we made and maybe withhold the information to um withhold the information that the cure has a certain side effect that may cause some sort of amnesia. I'm not sure which one I would prefer to use. Hmm. Alice seems like she would go freaking crazy if I. Mm, if I let. But no, if she took the freaking. If she had taken the Lycan, I can't be sure if she would have died. And I can't be sure if we could have found a cure. Uh. Hmm. And then we still would have needed more subjects to make sure, but she also seems susceptible, but I can't. I do feel like she was infected with it before, but I can't be sure. Or something. Um, maybe she wasn't infected with it. I don't know. Mm, this is a tough decision. Now, in accordance with Crown law, Moreland continues, it falls upon you to divulge every aspect of your medical discoveries, treatments, and progress to me. Every aspect. Mm. Maybe I should just hope that the Crown is not a complete piece of shit and wouldn't use this in warfare. But Ioko. Hmm. I think I should trust Ioko. This will definitely not put Alice in a good mood. And she might also say something. Uh, which is what I'm worried about. Hmm. The safest decision is to just tell them everything, I guess. Maybe. I'm sure Moreland would probably write everything down. I don't know. I guess I choose to tell him everything. Uh, uh, hmm, damn it. Maybe. I also can't guarantee that we could be brought into the royal physicians thing too. So I'm also worried about that. Let's just see what happens if we opt to alter and withhold just enough information to deny the crown a full picture. Let's see what happens. Mm, because the lady who went to get us, she said she had no knowledge of the royal physicians or the offer for that. Mm, so I don't know if they're telling the truth that we would be offered to be in there. So I don't know. Uh, I announce that I cannot in good conscience provide the crown with these details. Um, but then he would get very angry. But then again, I don't want to do all that again. Mm, uh, mm, mm. The Baron seems like he might be reasonable enough, but I don't know if he'll be very happy with the things that I'm going to do. Um, uh, and if they ask the others if I alter and withhold information, that could prove to be problematic. Hmm. Hmm. I wish that I could save my progress and start from where I stopped. Uh, Maybe I can tell him what Ayako had told me to this guy. Hmm. I need help making a decision. I'm very indecisive right now. Hmm. Maybe I could talk to him. Hmm. I'm in a very dangerous situation right now. Because if I'm correct, if I don't tell them, I could be put to death. Hmm. In the end, though, I guess it would be very useful to tell them and then try to continue working with them as one of their royal physicians to help continue to cure this plague that they might use against people. Uh, I'm gonna choose to tell him everything, I guess. Maybe there's an option that I could tell him not to relay this all. But then that would mean that I would have to probably choose the third one. But the third one could also mean that I could freaking die. Mm. Safest option is to choose to tell him everything. God damn it. I don't know. This is just so vague with everything. I can't get a clear idea of what I'm going to be doing once I make this choice. So the safest option is just to tell them everything. You describe your process in extracting detail and leave no fragment of your medical knowledge unexplored, assuring the Baron that, if the Crown demands, your colleague Alice can provide diligent records. Sybil Blake's fall from power is regrettable, Moreland says. However, the health of the town and the containment of the disease are adequate. Adequate? He pauses to inhale a thoughtful breath. The quarantine shall be lifted. In the coming cycles, the Crown will provide you with any additional ingredients or resources you require to maintain or expand your methods of treatment. That gives me hope that I'll be able to cure things with much more efficiency. You fear you already know the outcome of the question forming upon your lips, but feel bound to ask it. My thanks, but was there not also mention of the fellowship? The Baron's laughter confirms your suspicion. Perhaps I did not make myself clear. Your actions have been adequate, almost impressive, I would say, for mere plague doctors. But it is clear you lack the discipline and talent necessary to join the fellowship of physicians. I knew it. He points to the entrance of the shelter. Count yourself fortunate to be living here and able to spread the good cheer to your colleagues. I knew it. The town's gate may stay open, and you may stay alive. I should have freaking... As you reflect upon the Baron's words, you wonder what your colleagues will make of this outcome. Alice will brood over the Fellowship's rejection, but you can't tell her the truth. But you can tell her the truth. You held nothing back. Aoko urged you to keep some details hidden, yet it appears the sum of your knowledge is less than the Crown had hoped. Huh. Aoko urged you to keep some details hidden, yet it appears the sum of your knowledge is less than the Crown had hoped. Both, in their way, may be at peace with what had transpired. Let's see. Depart the Baron's presence. Subdue the walking death and remove the quarantine. You make your way back through the ranks of the Baron's shoulders, destined now to return to their stark winter fields. The quarantine is at an end. You, too, will soon be able to travel where you please. Farther down the track, through sheets of vertical rain that have turned the earth beneath your feet into a shallow cascade of mud, you see the sanctuary towers of Thornback Hollow. You pause your step, letting the brown waters wash around the worn boots. Work still remains. Medicine to distribute, people to be fed, colleagues who will accept the outcome of your parley in high spirits, those who may feel it tainted by betrayal. You take a deep breath. The late afternoon downpours splashes off your waxed robes and into the waterlogged soil below. You take off your crow mask, turn your face to the cold, showering skies, and exhale. You've never felt so tired. Maybe I can make up the trust between me and Ioko. I don't know, though. In any situation, although disappointing on my end, with the outcome and what I have done, and the choices that I've made, that ends Chapter 12. I will be continuing this later today, and I hope you've enjoyed if you've been watching. Thank you so much for watching if you are. And hopefully I'll see you in the next stream. Later.